Alright, what is up, you guys? I am here with the SummerSlam 1995 review. This took place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the Civic Center. And we are smack dab in the middle of the New Generation era. And if there's any pay-per-view that screams and exemplifies what a New Generation era pay-per-view feels like, this is it. And that's not necessarily a good thing. This SummerSlam feels like an in-your-house pay-per-view, to be honest. The opening matchup, we had Hakushi defeating the 1-2-3 Kid, a.k.a. Shawn Waltman, XPac. And the thing about Hakushi is he had a really good exhibition match with The Undertaker, but I feel like that's really all he's known for in the WWF. I don't know. I thought he was interesting. You know, I liked his look. You know, he definitely had talent, but I'm pretty sure not many people, possibly some people watching this video, don't know who he is. And I feel like he really needed some more time to really express himself as a talent in the WWF. But this was a decent opener. You know, I enjoyed it for what it was. And then we have Hunter Hearst Helmsley defeating Sparkplug Bob Holly, who was the race car driver in his spare time. Yeah, that was just... I'm not a Bob Holly fan personally, especially this version of Bob Holly. You know, this was just... I don't know. It's one of those matches. Obviously, Helmsley's going to go over. He's going to get the pedigree. He was undefeated at the time, and they advertised that a few times during this match. Then we have the Smoking Guns defeating the Blue Brothers. You know, it's a 6-minute tag match, really nothing special. And then we have, here we go, Barry Horowitz, the greatest jobber of all time, defeating Skip, accompanied by Sonny. So yeah, this one 11 minutes too long. You know, I like Chris Candido, I like Sonny. And Chris Candido was Skip, obviously, at the time. And I don't know, this one was just New Generation era, basically. Barry Horowitz got the win. Obviously, he's a notorious jobber and probably one of the most famous jobbers out there. And then we had Bertha Faye. No one probably knows who she is either. Accompanied by Harvey Wimpleman, defeating Alundra Blaze. Now, if you don't know who Bertha Faye is, this was one of her very few pay-per-view matches. She's kind of like the Nia Jax, the heel Nia Jax of the New Generation era. That's really the best way to put it, except it's not the anti-bullying speech every time she wins a match. But, you know, she was athletic, but she was she was, I guess, a plus-size wrestler, if you want to call that. And she was pretty athletic for what she was. And then, of course, you have Harvey Wippleman at her side. And it's just the perfect combination. It's not that great of a match. It's entertaining for what it was. And you probably wouldn't expect Alundra Blaze to lose. So, maybe that's part of the reason why she jumped. Because, you know, she was very talented. It's very clear Alundra Blaze here is very talented. And then we have The Undertaker facing Kama, accompanied by Ted DiBiase. This was a casket match, and this went 16 minutes and 26 seconds. This is a good match. Undertaker wasn't at the best place in his career at this time. You know, he was just... It felt like a never-ending feud here with the whole DiBiase stable. And, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. This is a good match, but Undertaker was able to stick it out. He gave Kama a really good match. I'm not saying he carried him through the match, but it was still a good match. I'm not a casket match fan, personally. It's one of my least favorite match types. I just don't really think they're that entertaining. But, you know, for a casket match, this was pretty good. And then we have Bret, the Hitman Hart, one of my all-time favorites. I've always felt like he got the SummerSlam curse. Which we'll get to more of that later. But he faces Isaac Yankem DDS. If you don't know who that is, it's Kane's gimmick before it was Kane. So Glenn Jacobs, who played Kane, before that he played an evil dentist. Sounds awful, probably because it is, but it's one of those things, it's like almost so bad it's good, and Glenn Jacobs really made it work. He was basically just Jerry Lawler's dentist, and he was just thrown in there with Bret Hart. But this is actually a pretty entertaining match. This went 16 minutes as well. It ended with disqualification by Bret Hart getting the win here. And, you know, it's really not bad. It sounds terrible, but it's not. It's definitely worth checking out. And then we have Shawn Michaels facing Razor Ramon once again in a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. This went 25 minutes and 4 seconds. To me, this should have been the main event. Fuck Diesel versus King Mabel. This was your main event of the show. You had a great story going into this. It basically writes itself. You have two of the most talented guys in 1995 in a rematch from WrestleMania 10, which was a phenomenal match. And then 2 years later, a little over 2 years later here, you have the rematch, and it's just awesome. I don't think it's quite as good as WrestleMania 10's ladder match, but this still really stands on its own. This is a fantastic match. And like I said, it's just kind of a shame that you didn't make this the main event, because that's basically kind of the main attraction of the show, to be honest. Oh, God. Then we have the main event. Diesel versus King Mabel. Yeah, I have nothing good to say about this. I'm not a fan of either of them, really. I think Diesel was kind of a failed experiment. And Mabel, I don't really know what the hell that was. He had so many gimmicks in the WWE, and it's not his fault. You know, he was Viscera, Big Daddy V, just Mabel, and obviously King Mabel. Like, he's not bad. It's just, he's given these awful gimmicks. And it's just, you can only work with so much. And, I mean, of course, the King of the Ring that year was just a disaster. Complete disaster. This, thankfully, only went 9 minutes. I know these two have had heat with each other, because Viscera's dead now. But I know Diesel was not very pleased with this at all. There was a point where King Mabel injured him. So, yeah, you know, this is not a SummerSlam main event at all whatsoever. This is shit. I hate it. The ladder match should have been the main event. Yeah, it's just unfortunate. It kind of really brings the show down when you had sort of a strong showing here. But when it comes to a letter grade, I don't dislike this pay-per-view as much as some other people do. I'm going to give this a C+. It's very average. If this had a better main event, it could be a much better show. You know? It's just unfortunate. But the opener was good. You had a decent casket match. Bret Hart and Isaac Yankem. As ridiculous as that sounds, they made it their own. Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. Excellent ladder match. And then a god-awful shitty main event. So yeah, there you go. SummerSlam 1995.